Hey there, everyone, and welcome into a off-day edition of Tomahawk Talk. I'm Adam Gatkin, alongside Nathan Schwartz and Cam Manna. We are 4 games into the season, and the Bravos currently sit at 1-3. But this is nothing new to Bourne. Early season struggles, and even with some of these struggles, record-wise, when you look at some of the just straight-up stats, especially hits, this team is doing very well, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. They're tied for first in the Cape right now in hits with 38. And when you just look at the some of the other numbers, right? They're fourth in on base percentage at 357. They're tied for third in doubles, which is kind of shocking to me because when you look at Bourne's offense as a whole, the output just hasn't been there over the last couple of games. And I think a big reason why is because this team is struggling to get big power hits in these big moments when they have runners in scoring position, which is another number that over the last 3 games in particular, Bourne has struggled with, going 9 for 34 with runners in scoring position after going 7 for 15 in that opening day win against Orleans. So really, it just hasn't been a cohesive approach at the plate. And I think that's been a big reason why Bourne is 0 for 3 in the last 3 games.
Yeah, there's been a lot of issues also with strikeouts when it comes to this offense, tied for the league lead in strikeouts. As you said, just the situational hitting. There's been some issues with that, but that always seems to happen in summer ball when there's the transition from wood to metal bats. From metal to wood bats. Guys are still getting to know each other. They're still trying to understand what the coaching staff's philosophy is. So this is pretty much expected early on in the season in the Cape League. And Cam, now to you, when it comes to this pitching staff, kind of the same type of thing as hitting, where we've seen a lot of good stuff, but also some early season struggles that probably aren't too surprising.
We mentioned how the strikeouts are a problem on the hitting side. Well, the strikeouts aren't a problem on the pitching side. They still have a lot of strikeouts, but in the good way, 49 right now, which is leading the Cape in that category. But the biggest thing that we've seen is the walk troubles right now for Bourne, 22, which is top of the Cape right now. And most pitchers that have come out of the bullpen, pretty much outside of Nolan Sparks and Connor Whitgriff, that we'll talk about in a little bit, have had walk trouble, getting down in counts early, and that has been the main issue for them. And we've seen that hurt Bourne a lot. We've seen first and second, no outs. We've seen other teams continue to hammer the baseball with runners in scoring position. We saw Harwich with two-run homers, and it really all started with a few walks, getting first and second, keeping the train rolling. So Bourne, once again, the one side of the coin on the pitching or hitting side is good, and the other side is a little bit more weighted, and we're seeing that right now. Walks mean do a lot more damage than the amount of guys you're striking out, and that's had Bourne with an opponent batting average right now around 260. So a lot of things to fix in the coming games for the Bravos.
Yeah, those home runs have really hurt the Braves. 4 home runs allowed. That's the most in the league. But again, the most strikeouts. So we're seeing, some great things and some things that need to be worked on. But again, we're 4 games into the season. There is a lot of time to go. So there is no need at all to press a panic button. This is just how the sport of baseball works. Now, Nathan, I want to go to you when we're now talking about back to the offense and some more specific players. Who are some guys that, you're looking at that have kind of stood out to you so far?
I think you got to start at the top of the order in Chris Stanfield. And of course, most recently, he announced his transfer commitment to LSU coming over from Auburn. And he's been stellar at the top of this order. He had a rough first game, even though he did have a hit. He went 1 for 5, but was struggling to put the ball in play. But then over the last 3 games, he's been pretty consistent at the top of this order. He's hitting 294 over the first 4 games, 5 hits and 17 at bats, getting on base at a 368 clip, couple of walks, couple of stolen bases, and he's doing his part to try and get this offense going. And he's had a hit in all 4 games, so we'll look to see that going later today. And then another player I want to mention is Nick Roselli from Binghamton, and he's another player that's had a hit in all 3 games. 3 for 10 is Nick over the first 3 games with a double, 3 walks as well. His strikeout numbers are a little bit up, but that's really just a par for the course with everybody in this lineup over the first couple of days.
Cam, how about you, two guys who have really stuck out to you through the first couple of games?
Well, we've talked about the rising sophomore out of Vanderbilt in Braden Holcomb right now, batting 471. He's had the most at bats on the team with Stanfield. He has 8 hits, which is also towards the top of the Cape. That's second in that category. He's done a lot of good swinging the bat right now, but the biggest thing from Holcomb is it's been singles or it's been strikeouts. He's struck out 8 times right now. When you put a guy like that in the heart of the order with runners in scoring position, you expect a little bit more damage. And once again, there's one side of it that has been really good for Holcomb. He's a young bat that's seeing the ball well. He's been able to put up a lot of tough swings, spray the field well. We've seen him have a few hits to left. We saw him have 3 hits to right in the last 2 games. So I think there's a lot of good from Holcomb. The strikeout numbers definitely need to drop. And then the other guy that I want to talk about is just the improvement that we need to see in the next few games from Caden Bodine. We've seen Bodine and what his ability is. There's no doubt he's one of the best catchers in the nation right now. But the struggling start for Bodine, he hasn't got comfortable on either side of the plate as the switch hitter. He's been relied on as the number 3 hitter in the order in 3 of the 4 games. He started 3 times. If Bodine can get going, he's the engine of this order right now. Only 2 hits in his first 12 at bats. So you expect Bodine to get going. Batted 380 on the Cape last summer. But right now, with the engine is not going to work in the middle of the order, it does a lot of damage from 1 through 9.
Yeah, the Braves definitely need Bodine to start picking things up. As you said, he's one of the more veteran players on this team. He's someone who played really well this past spring as well. It'll come with him. He just, got to get into it. It's a game of baseball, so guys go through streaks of playing hot and cold. We're just 4 games into the season, so it's all about patience at this point. For me, the 2 guys who I'm looking at right now, starting off with Isaiah Jackson, he's an interesting case to me because we look all the way back to opening day and he was incredible. 3 RBIs in that game and 2 for 3. But since then, he's struggled and hasn't gotten a hit. But this is kind of just what we have come to expect from Isaiah Jackson. When you go all the way back to his school season, too, at Arizona State, he's the type of ball player who, is going to have a couple games with 2 hits and a couple RBIs, and he's going to have a couple games where he doesn't have any hits. And he's a streaky ball player, and he's not necessarily your guy who's going to go 2 for 5 every single night. It might, take some time for him to get that batting average back up. But, again, this is a long, long season. And I feel like we just have to always remember that at the end of the day, that we are 4 games in to a season that is 40 games long. So any of these things that, seem worrisome right now, we're so early on where it's not anything that you should really even, bat an eye at. But, I think that Jackson can figure it out. We've seen some great swings from him over the last couple of days in batting practice. It's just in game, he's got to put it together. He's one of the guys who had the double early in the season, so we've seen power from him. He's just got to start getting bat to ball once again. Now, my second guy is someone who has been getting bat to ball. It's Merrick Houston. He has been incredible. 6 for 11 so far to start this season. That's hitting .545 in total. So the only issue with him is all 6 of his hits are singles. It happens again early in the season, especially with the transition from metal to wood bat. The big thing is finding the sweet spot and finding the power alleys. That's the issue for a lot of players early on. Houston, was so good this past year at Wake Forest. He was really good last summer in Amsterdam with the Mohawks team that is legendary in the Perfect Game League and that seems to win the title every single year. So he knows how to hit well with the wood bat. It's maybe just taking him some time to fully transition, fully figure out how to get that sweet spot on the ball once again, so he can start hitting into the gaps, hitting it, further towards the wall and getting those extra base hits and doubles. But, things are starting to get there for him. Houston is putting the bat on the ball really well. He just has to turn those singles into some doubles. Well, that's all we have for now on some of those hitters. Now to some pitchers, Nathan. Who's someone who stood out to you?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about 2 guys real quick. And the first one is going to be Donovan Zach. And I know he picked up the loss in that game against Chatham on Monday and had the 5 walks. And I'm sure that will be corrected. But 8 strikeouts out of only 10 outs recorded for Donovan Zach. That's extremely efficient. He didn't give up a hit. And those 2 earned runs he gave up came just via those free passes. And that's just going to happen. It's a game of baseball. That was just a really funky game all around. But what I really liked about Donovan in this start was he was not afraid to throw that fastball. He was throwing it with 2 strikes. He was throwing it early in the count to get ahead. That was his put away pitch sitting in the mid 90s. And when you have so much trust in your fastball like that, it only makes your breaking pitches that much more effective. And we saw the slider and the curveball really come to life in those third and the fourth innings. And I think that's going to be definitely a good sign moving forward. And then for my other guy, it's going to be Nolan Sparks, who just officially now will be with Boston College next year, transferring from Rochester. Still somebody that we should keep an eye on for the draft here in a couple of weeks. And a big reason why we should keep an eye out is the way he performed on Sunday at Brewster. 4 strikeouts over 2 innings. The fastball had a ton of life to it. The slider had a ton of bite to it. And he was flat out dominant and really gave a lot of those Brewster hitters problems.
Cam, how about you when you look at the pitching staff?
I'm going to touch on Matt McShane just a tiny bit from his last start against Harwich. And, coming in, we talked about McShane as a whole, and he was an all-star last year. He's a returner to this group. He has that veteran experience. Obviously not the start he expected or anyone did. 2 2/3, 6 hits, 4 earned. We saw the 2-run homer. Controlled trouble at times, 2 walks or 3 strikeouts for McShane. But as you mentioned before, Adam, when you're 4 games into a season and a guy like McShane who could be here a bit before that draft comes around, McShane is a guy that was dominant in the spring at St. Joseph's. He was dominant last summer. He's going to get his groove once again. The thing I loved about McShane is even after the 2-run homer, he came back that next AB and he put down a hitter via the strikeout. His fastball was commanding around 94, 95 miles per hour. He was able to hit it for strikes most of the time. He just lost some trust in that slider pitch, which is usually his number 2. But I think back to your point, when you talk about, not hitting the panic button, McShane is one of those guys that you may not have to worry about too much. And then Ben Bybee will pitch tonight for the Bravos, the right-hander out of Arkansas. He had that small sample size against Orleans, just 1 hit, 3 hits, 2 earned, and 2 strikeouts. Not a lot we saw there, so we're going to see a lot more from him tonight. But during his spring season, it wasn't the best thing overall for him. A 6.15 ERA. He had about 26 innings pitched. So you wonder here from Bybee tonight when he gets those more innings under his belt, a starting pitching role against a Hyannis Harbor Hawks offense that's been number 1, has blown away the Cape. It's going to be a test here tonight.
It's going to be a big test for Bybee, but there's a lot of pitchers who are a lot better as starters. Bybee came out of the bullpen his first time out. He didn't start at all this past season at Arkansas, so we'll see if maybe he just needs to get that start to fully get into his groove and fully just get into that rhythm. When you look at his last summer ball season, when he played in Santa Barbara last summer, he had a 1.25 ERA in the California League in 5 starts. So, maybe he just needs to get into that rhythm, and we can hopefully see a quality start from Bybee tonight. A guy who stood out to me through the first 4 games was the opening day starter in Connor Whitgriff. He was just sensational back on opening day, going 5 innings, just 3 hits, didn't walk anyone, didn't allow any runs. He struck out 6. I think the most impressive thing for me with Whitgriff is he didn't necessarily blow anyone away with his velocity. I think the velocity with his overall pitching staff is probably what stood out to me the most so far this season, because there are a lot of guys who are throwing 95, 96. It feels like about half the pitching staff's velocity is up in the mid 90s. Whitgriff, that's not necessarily him or his game. He's throwing his fastballs, again, around 92, 93, right in that area, but so much movement on his pitches. He did a great job of making sure that he was missing the sweet spot on everyone's bat. He wasn't allowing any hard contact at all. And that type of pitching can really lead to success in summer ball. It's not always about just straight up power, but it's about, can you control the zone, and how well can your breaking pitches deceive batters and force swings and misses? And that's what Whitgriff did so well on opening day that really impressed me so much. All right, well, we have a game tonight against the Hyannis Harbor Hawks. Before we go, Nathan and Cam, this is a Hyannis offense that has been incredible so far this season. Somehow Bourne tied with them for the league lead in hits, but when it comes to scoring runs, they've been pretty much unstoppable, Nathan.
Yeah, I'd say so. And a big reason why is because when they're getting those runners on base, which they lead the Cape in right now with the 421 on base percentage, they're driving those guys in. 32 runs scored for Hyannis over the first 4 games. And, they're just combining that on base with the slugging, and 807 OPS as well. The power has been there. They have a couple of big bats in their lineup, John Gazdar to highlight it, and Zach York coming off of a big game as well. So this is a Hyannis team that's coming in guns a-blazing. They're looking to get to 5 wins, but it's going to be a great matchup because Bourne is also back at home for the first time in 5 days, trying to just do whatever they can to build some momentum and get back within 1 game of 500.
All right, Cam. Well, if the Bravos are going to get back into the win column today, what do you think needs to happen?
I think the lineup has to just keep the train rolling overall. You have to avoid the strikeouts. And Caden Bodine said it to you pregame. In college baseball, you got to move the runner over. If there's a guy on second with nobody outs, ground ball right side, fly ball, move him to third. We'll see Scott Landers be more aggressive with the small ball and the stolen bases, but it starts with getting on base and doing your job. And when it comes to Hyannis, it's just really stopping any damage control that you have. You don't want to have the Harbor Hawks have a big 5-6 run inning. And we saw that with Harwich as well. When, you're down 4-1 or early in the game, it's a morale killer right now. So the Braves just need to keep this game close. And when you talk about the offense, it's do the little things, do your job, and then hit with runners in scoring position when a guy's 90 feet away.
I think that's exactly right, Cam. You can go down by 1 or 2 runs, but it's all about just keeping it close, making it feel like you're still in the game and not down by too many runs where it just feels too hard to come back, because especially at this point in the season, you don't want any mental issues where you're worrying too much, because this is already a blowout and we're in the 3rd inning. So it's all about just keeping it close and not allowing any of those big innings from Hyannis. Well, the Braves again back in action today, back home today at Durham Park for the first time since opening day after a long 3-game road trip. First pitch tonight is at 6 p.m. So we will see you there. Again, it's the Hyannis Harbor Hawks taking on the Bourne Braves at 6 p.m. at Durham. We thank you all so much for listening and watching this edition of Tomahawk Talk here after the first off day of the season. We will see you all soon.